like, Dad, like, what the heck? Like, you're telling me that these machines are like your buddies. And he's like, yeah, but they're newer. I'm like, that's not what I want. I'm like, no, I don't want to be in a dirty, smelly shop. Like, no. He was like, well, it doesn't have to be. You can make it whatever you want. And I was like, okay, true.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Manufacturing Muscle Podcast. I've been waiting so long to do this episode. One of my favorite women in the manufacturing world, Melissa Ramos, president of M95 Machine. Melissa, thanks so much for being on with us. I can't wait to get into this episode. Before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and how you started M95?
So the short answer is because I was kind of tired of being bossed around by my dad. And no, well, he was telling me like, you know what, just take a leap, do it. You can do it, and if you can't do it, like, I'll help you out, or you can get a job somewhere else. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I never wanted to like look back and think like, what if I would have done it? What if I would have done it? So I was machining for him for a couple years, and then I started programming, and I learned everything in house, which like wasn't much, but it was enough to like make like simple parts. And yeah, I was getting job offers at different companies. I was helping other people program. I had like multiple job opportunities, but I was always scared because like it was always jobs that were you're going to be the only woman in the shop. Like, I just want you to know you're going to be the only chick in the shop. And like growing up at the shop with my dad since I was 14, I was the only woman until like recently. And it even then like that sucked, and I always felt out of place, and I always thought I didn't belong because I would go drop off parts and like there are no other women. I'm like, Dad, like, why are you making me do this, dude? There are no other chicks in shops. Like, they're working shipping and receiving. They're like receptionists, like they're assistants. Like, why am I like, how am I going to make parts? Like, so that always scared me. But I was like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to do it, and whatever happens, happens. I've been, I've, well, I started M95 2 years ago, and my Instagram blew up pretty quickly. I've gotten the opportunity to travel, to meet amazing people. And what I love is that everyone is so supportive and so nice once they get to know you. And once they like see that, you just want to make parts and be like all the other dudes, I guess.
And with M95, I know we're going to get into this a little bit later when we talk about social media and the kind of like the perception, but I just kind of want you to give a pitch for M95. What kind of parts do you guys do? Do you have open capacity? Are there certain jobs you're looking to get into?
Definitely have capacity right now. Definitely have slowed down. But I don't shy away from anything. And if there are ever projects where I feel like I can't do, I ask, my neighbors for help. I ask my dad for help. I definitely ask whoever I can for help before turning it down. I would like to maybe get into more of like aerospace, maybe automotive. I do like some robotic stuff here and there, but I don't like to turn anything down. I think the coolest thing I ever got was this really old man who came in and with a USB, and he said, "Hey, like, I saw your YouTube channel. I think it's great. Will you make the parts that I have in this USB?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And he was like, "Okay, I'll be back in 2 weeks. And do you take credit card?" I was like, "Sure." And I like didn't think anything of it, but yeah, we exchanged emails and phone numbers and made all of his parts. And he came back a few other times, and it was great. So really don't shy away from anything.
What a neat interaction. All right, well, that's good to know. And if anyone listening needs parts made or want to learn more about what you can do at M95, how should they get in touch with you?
Probably email is the best way. I get a lot of DMs on Instagram, but I try to not. It's kind of hard to keep up with them, so email would be best.
Okay, perfect. And we will put Melissa's email in the description for those of you who would like to get in touch regarding her making some parts for you guys. So now I want to dive into your full story, how you got into manufacturing. I know your relationship with your dad was a huge influence in that, but you had a really unique story and kind of not the best experience getting into manufacturing and getting into your trades program, and then you still kind of came out on top. And I think this is a really important story because a lot of times in manufacturing and what we get on this podcast is people just talk about, oh yeah, I walked in, I was so accepted, everything was great, yada da da da, and that's not always the truth. And we want to show the reality side. So why don't you take it away? Tell us how you got into manufacturing and that whole experience up until today.
So my dad started working at this company when I was about 13, 14, and he quickly became manager and now part owner. And so I was able to come with him to the shop, and money, I felt like growing up was always tight. And I always like to have like my own money. I never liked to ask my parents for money, and I wanted to go to the movies, wanted to hang out with friends. So I was able to come summers as a 14-year-old and weekends to help him. And I knew that like there weren't a lot of people. He didn't mind it. Um, and I would do simple things like I'd be on the Hager, doing hardware. I'd be on the press break. I'd be like putting screws into like little bags in his office, like little things. And even as a punishment, sometimes he'd be like, you know what, you're going to the shop tomorrow. So it quickly like did turn into that. Like if, you're in trouble, so you're going to go to the shop tomorrow. So like growing up, it was kind of like that. And it always seemed like, dude, I have to wake up at 3:30 in the morning on my summers or on the weekend. But like I was the only like 14, 15-year-old that was like working and that had, her own money. And I turned like 15, 16, and then I would bring a friend over and like he had more work. So, me and my friend would be on the Hager, or I like had a boyfriend, so we worked like summers, and there was always like an extra hand for my dad, and he didn't mind. And I graduated high school. I didn't apply to college. I didn't want to go to college. Right after high school, I started modeling. I did like commercials and runway stuff, and I veered away from the shop. And I went back to school. I still had a modeling contract, but then I realized that I was like, if I break my face or like if I gain any weight, I just knew that it wasn't something that I was going to keep up with or that I like wanted to do. And I just really felt like I wasn't putting my full effort into it, and I knew that my dad wasn't happy. And he was like, well, like that's only going to last so long. And I was like, yeah, you're right, and like I wanted to help him. I felt like it was like a family business, and like he needed my hand or he needed somebody's hand. So I was like, I want to be that person. And the computer stuff like was always interesting to me, and kind of seeing like how it's made from like start to finish was really neat. And so I think I was like about 19 or 20, and I started taking CAD classes, and I was like doing a lot of AutoCAD and like Inventor and Revit, doing like architectural classes, doing CAD classes. And then like I think I turned like after the college stuff, I was like still working and doing college, and like I just never stopped working. So I like wasn't focused on one thing at once. Like I would miss class because of work, or I would miss work because of class. And I'm like, this isn't fair to me, it's not fair to my dad. And then I was like, can you like please like give me like a more permanent position? Like I was doing shipping and receiving, I was like on the press break, I was on the laser, I was on the Hager, like I was just basically like his little assistant. Like I was on the Hager, and then no, pull mate, go drop off parts, go pick up parts. So I was doing all sorts of stuff. And then they basically like needed a tax write off, so they bought like the two hot CNCs that I use now. And he like got the machines. I don't even know if I was like on break or on vacation or something, but I came back and yeah, these machines were there. And he was like, hey, like, I got these for you. If you like this, like, if you're good at it, I will help you open up your own shop. And like, of course, I just thought like he was blowing smoke up my ass. I was like, no, you're just saying that because you like want me to be here at the shop. Like, you're just saying that. Like, why would you help me? And so, yeah, like those machines are really expensive, and it was like up to me to learn how to use them and to just learn everything about them. And I was like, I've never seen anything like it. Like I've been in manufacturing, I've dropped off parts, but I've never seen these machines. Like they're enclosed, they need like liquid, which is coolant, you know? Like I'm like, what the heck? And then he was like telling me like, yeah, and you have to learn how to program. And I'm like, what do you mean like program? Like I have to set the machine up and I also have to program? Like, what are you gonna do? And so I realized that like his good friend that I would go drop off and pick up parts from had the same machines, but it was like his shop is like really, really old and dirty. And I would hate going there. It smelled like one time I went in there and like something leached onto my sweater, like there was oil on the ground. Like it's just like not a place where like not an environment that I wanted to be in, you know? And I was like, Dad, like what the heck? Like you're telling me that these machines are like your buddies. And he's like, yeah, but they're newer. I'm like, that's not what I want. I'm like, no, I don't want to be in a dirty, smelly shop. Like, no. He was like, well, it doesn't have to be. You can make it whatever you want. And I was like, okay, true. So then he started programming with HSM Works and I was running the machines, but like I was like, I feel like I need to learn how to program before I'm running those machines. And everybody would tell me, like, no, you need to learn the machine before you can program. And I was like, whatever, like, sure. And I never realized, yeah, that's so true. So I learned how to run the machines after crashing and crashing and crashing them and like breaking tools, breaking probes, probably. Because he was programming and he was simulating the parts. And he was like, well, it says everything is fine in the computer. And I'm like, well, my coordinate system is here and I'm doing it how you said, but like, this is what's coming out. It's like a blob. It was like, it was nothing. So I tried to take machining classes at the local JC, and I got to the class. My professor looked at me, and I was like, "Hey, like, I don't want to start from like level one. I just want to start at the, programming classes and run the machines because I've been running the machines at work. I'm pretty proficient. Like, if you want me to do something on the machines to show you, I can. Like, I have two of these machines at work." And like after going back and forth with him, he was like, fine, you can sit in the class, don't talk. I'm not going to enroll you in the class. And like, whatever happens is on you. So like, you can fill in, but I'm not going to enroll you in the class. Like, you will not get a certificate. And I was like, okay, I don't want a certificate. Like, I just want to be able to learn to program. I just want to be in a class. Like, I just want to be taught, and hang out with like fellow machinists, whatever. Um, I would raise my hand. He would like completely look the other way. I was the only chick in the class. He would tell me things like, maybe you should just pick up a broom. And so from that, like I was really discouraged, and it definitely brought like my self-esteem down drastically. And like I didn't tell my dad. I was embarrassed because he was like paying me to go to these classes from like 6 to 9 p.m. twice a week or something. And I'm like, I'm just like letting him down again. Like, what am I supposed to say? My professor is hella sexist and like he's being an asshole. No, I didn't say that to him. So like I kept going, and there was a group of Hispanic guys, and I sat with them, and I remember I brought a USB with me, and I was like, guys, like I really need help. I have to program this part because I have to make them at work tomorrow. And they were like, okay. And so they helped me program it on Mastercam, and in return, they needed some parts. So I got my dad to make them those parts, and like that's kind of how we would trade off. And like in the long run, my professor would like play that guy that paints with the big afro, Bob Ross, I
I
think.
think so, yeah.
So he would just play Bob Ross for us and like go to his office. Like he wasn't even there the whole class at all. Like we learned nothing in that class. And I'm like, I'm so glad that I don't know that I like didn't get a certificate or anything. I'm like, if I had to take a test, I would have failed because he was not there. He was a complete like failure of a professor. And so I thought already that, okay, all professors are like this. They don't believe in women. They don't want women in manufacturing. Like, this is how it's going to be for me. And like, if I really want to learn something, I'm going to have to do it myself. And so after that, I kind of started looking for a part time job. And I was like, okay, let me go look for a part time job, maybe get hired once or twice a week at another shop and see if I can figure it out this way, or if, I can learn something somewhere else. And um, I went to one shop and I like had enough. He gave me a tour. It was such an awful shop, and it was like dark and it was scary and it was like smelly. It was the same thing, like oily, smelly, and like the machines were super old. And like I came back to the second interview or something, and he was like, look, like I'm not gonna hire you, but I would love to take you out sometime. And I just like looked at him and I was like, oh, okay, well, thanks for your time. And like I went home and I was like, dude, like what's gonna come of this? Like what am I even doing? Like these people are not gonna take me seriously. They're right. Like women probably shouldn't be in manufacturing. Like I don't see anybody when I go drop off parts at these shops, like besides the dudes working on equipment or, doing whatever. It was always the guys in the shop. So after that, I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna do it myself. And then I really did struggle because I think ultimately, like, I just didn't want to let my dad down more than anything. It's like I just don't want to let you down. You bought these machines, and he knew that I was like a troubled like teen too, and so he was like, I'm just doing this to help you. And he would tell me like, why can't you just see that I'm doing this to help you? And I was like 22 or 23. I'm just like, yeah, right, dad, like whatever. So if I could go back to like my younger self and like tell myself like this is going to be really good for your future, and this is like your life right here, like I would have totally listened. I would have buckled down. I would have done so many things differently. But so after that, I took a I started programming my own parts by myself, and I just couldn't get the post right. I didn't know that like when you program in Fusion or in any software, like each machine has its own post. Like each machine has its own like specific code. So I was programming parts, and when I would put the USB in the machine, it was like error. It wasn't reading right, and the codes were all wrong. And I went to like this class at the Selway like HFO at our nearest like HFO. And this guy was sitting next to me, and at the time he worked for Autodesk, and he was like, "Why aren't you paying attention?" And I'm like, "Well, because I know what's going on, but I just like really need to get this done. Like I have to go back to the shop and make parts." And he was like, "Oh, let me see." And he was like, "Your post is all wrong." And so at the time I was still working for my dad, and yeah, I learned how to program, and he would help me like once a week on Zoom, and I'd had questions and he would help me program, and it was great. And then I think I did that with my dad for 2 years, and I kind of started seeing like my dad had capped me off at like 19 or 20 bucks an hour. And I started seeing like how much money he was actually making, and like he would tell me like, I'm not going to pay you any more money, like, and I was getting job offers from like Apple and Facebook, and they were going to pay me way much more. But for Apple, I'd have to commute like 3 hours. And again, I was going to be like the only chick in the shop. And it was like starting off at like 60-hour weeks. And I was like, I don't want to drive that long. I don't want to work 60-hour weeks. And my dad would always tell me, like, you go, you do it. But just know, you're always going to be a working bee. And I was like, damn it, dad. Like, you know exactly what you're doing. You know what you're doing. And so I was like, you're right, you're right, you're right. I'm not going to go. And I just started all the paperwork, and it was kind of like after COVID. I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna start this process. I'll see where it goes. Like, how hard can it be? And yeah, I went on vacation. I went away for my birthday. I came back, and I had all my paperwork ready. Everything was done. My name, M95 Machining, all my paperwork, my licenses were already done. And it took me like 3 months after that because I was still super scared. I was still clocking in for him. I was still making parts for him, and I just came back from my hiking trip, and I was like, Dad, like I'm not gonna clock in anymore. I'm just gonna do it by myself. And ever since then, like yeah, he sends me RFQs, gives me a PO, I give him an invoice. Everything is pretty straightforward, and he's been my first and my best customer ever since.
What a good story. There's like just so many things I want to hit on. Like, first, one, I really admire and respect the relationship between you and your dad. I know that's something that our listeners hear me talk about a lot. My dad and my mom, but especially my dad, because I work for him, has played a very special role in my career and getting into manufacturing and everything. So I love hearing other women that get into manufacturing that were influenced and encouraged by their dad. I just think that's really cool. Because it kind of is showing like there's a guy that's a role model to you saying like, hey, there's not a lot of women in this industry, but I think you can do it. And
Mhm.
like that feeling of like your dad believing in you so much that you could go and be successful in like in a male dominated industry is like you said, like you just don't want to let them down. And like to me, and I don't know if you feel this way, but like kind of gives you that extra layer of courage. Like my dad thinks I can do this. And like I think so highly of my dad, like maybe I really can.
Yeah, and like I think my whole career, my whole life, he's been like my biggest supporter, and he's always told me like, if I can, like, why can't you? And I remember like being a kid and like falling or something, like, if I can, why can't you? Like, why can't you? Always, always that. And I think to myself like, he's right. Like, why can't I? And so yeah, he's been like my biggest supporter throughout the whole thing. We definitely have our ups and downs and our disagreements, but I know like no matter what, like he is ultimately my biggest supporter and my biggest fan.
That is awesome. I actually love when you post a story and it's some funny story about your dad, or like you're like, me and my dad are going at it today, and I just like laugh. I'm like, oh my god! One, I love that you're posting this. Two, great entertainment, and three, I just your guys's your relationship. It just seems so great. So thank you for sharing that side of your story with us.
I think that's why I have a big following, because I'm like honest and sometimes people can relate. Like, it's not easy. And when I started posting and stuff like me and my dad, I would get a lot of DMs. Like, I started off with my dad, you know, and he's not here anymore and this and that. And I'm like, that's going to be me one day. And like, I want to cherish every single moment, bad or good. And like,
Yeah.
he's not on Instagram anymore, but I love posting about him.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that. And so the other thing I wanted to touch on, well, there's two more. One, like the whole modeling to manufacturing thing, like that just like stuck in my head because today's day and age, you know, you go on Instagram and like every mom and their cousin's sister's daughter's sibling is all Instagram models. They all want to be fitness models. They're all this. Maybe you know you were seem to be more into like or a contracted model, maybe like not Instagram stuff, but like what would be because I feel like that's like every little girl's dream. Like, oh, I want to be a model. I want to be on a runway. I want to be in a magazine. Like, I
Yeah.
love how you talked about if I broke my face or like I wouldn't be allowed to gain weight. So I kind of have two questions. Like, one being, did you feel the pressure from the modeling industry about like the body stuff and things like that? And then the second question would be, what made you kind of change from modeling to manufacturing? Was it like a self reward thing, like manufacturing was more rewarding or more work? Like, what was more attractive about manufacturing than staying in modeling?
Well, for me, the I liked more the acting. Like, I was in a couple magazines and I did commercials, and like that's what I loved. And like there is no limit to being an actor. You know, you could be super big, you could be super small. You know, there's room for anyone. And the modeling, yeah, it was just like super cutthroat. I probably weighed at the time like 120 pounds. I had to, you know, get down to like 90 or 100 pounds, and I knew like for me that was something that I wasn't going to do. And like when you're waiting for a call, you're like in line with hundreds of girls, and I'm 5'9", and these girls were like 6'3". I'm like, okay, well, 6'3" and like 100 pounds. And I'm like, well, like that's not me, and it's never going to be me. Like, what am I going to do? Get my knees done or something? Like, you know, what am I going to
Get
do?
like knee extensions.
So I really enjoyed the acting stuff, and the modeling. I think it's like, especially if you're a young girl, like it can really, really mess with you. And it just goes back to like all the social media stuff. Like, you know, you see all these girls on Instagram and stuff, and like how much of it is real, because there's like the filters and there's like ways to adjust your body and stuff. And I just like that part of it, like really, like I don't like, I have younger sisters and there are a lot of, you know, chicks in my family and stuff, and I just didn't want to be like that, or like to make anybody feel like less than, like, oh, she's a model, she probably thinks she's like hot shit or something, you know, like that kind of stuff. But manufacturing to me was always like, it's a steady job. It's I can gain as much weight as I want, I guess. And I always thought it was cool, you know, being able to design something and bring it to life. And the whole running around trying to fight like 100 women just to wear like a coat or, I don't know, a pair of pants. Like, it just kind of, I was like, okay, I tried it. It was cool. I'm over it.
Not quite as rewarding as you thought.
No, yeah, no, yeah. Models don't get paid at all unless you're like Cara Delevingne and you model for like Chanel and like, yeah. What are the chances of that? I thought like,
And she went off the deep end, didn't she?
yeah, she totally did. Yeah, it's all like the psychological stuff behind it too, and I'm like, I don't want that.
That's very powerful of you to talk about. I think that's one thing that we haven't really gotten into on the Manufacturing Muscle podcast is talking about women and like jobs that they are maybe supposed to go into, or like industries they're like quote supposed to find attractive to them, and like modeling is definitely one of them. Like any way to use your body or be compared, your body compared one to the next to like get a job, like that is so mentally, like I really can't imagine that position. So thanks for talking about that. I really hope some, I know we do have some high school female listeners that I think that might really help them a lot in terms of like the way that they think. I also like how you talked about like you have younger sisters and you don't want your sisters like feeling a particular way, because like you said, like even though it might look so glitz and glam, like you're 5'9" and they're telling you need to be 90 pounds, like
It's like it's not physically possible. Like my bone structure and
so
everything, like it just it's just not.
That's so crazy. And then the last thing I want to touch on your story is one, your bravery to tell the story about your terrible, like that experience at the JC, and then the experience with the guy that was interviewing you that asked you on a date. One, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. And two, thank you for sharing, because I think that's going to give other people a different perspective on sometimes things that women have to go to get into male dominated industries. And would you be able to expand a little bit more on that? Like, what made you, after you encountered all those, if the teacher told you he ignored you, wasn't going to give you a certificate, this guy wasn't going to give you a job, but he would take you on a date, like, what kept your mind, like, focused on continuing to go down this path and, like, not letting these outside factors, like, tarnish your view of manufacturing?
Well, I hate to bring up my dad so much, but like my dad and like just I have customers now and I never realized how important it is. Like you can't let your customers down. And he's told me like and I'll never forget, you only have two things in this world is like good credit and your word. And like
I love
once you mess one of those up, like you have nothing. And it's true. And like he had customers to respond to. And it was my job, to get the parts done, to get the parts out. Like, screw whatever you and I have going on right now. Like, this is business and this is beyond what we have going on, And that's what it was. Like, he didn't care if my professor was being mean to me. He didn't care if like the computer wasn't working. Like, and as it should be, because like you made a commitment to your customers and there's money involved and there's like, relationships that have been made throughout like I don't know, 20, 15 plus years. And it doesn't matter. Like for me, when I was like working for him, I got like really really bad period cramps and like throughout high school and like I would miss work and he'd be like fine, I'll see you in a couple days, like I know how bad you get it. And now being by myself, I'm like, no, there is no like you're on your period, you're not going to show up to work, like it's up to me and I made a commitment to my customers and I can't let them down. So it's always like it's bigger than you. It's not always about you, and that's what I've learned, like, being M95 and doing it on my own and stuff. Like, this is bigger than you. You have like fans, you have people that look up to you, you have customers, and you have a reputation. Like, you just can't let what you have going on because you're sad, because you're period, because you have cramps. Like, none of that really matters now. You have to do this. This is your livelihood.
I think that's really good advice. It's good advice because for many reasons, but mainly because it kind of has that like get grit, you know, get tough kind of mentality behind it. It's like, okay, you can say something to me, say whatever you want. Life happened the way life happens, but I'm still going to show up and I'm going to do my job for my customers. So I love that you didn't let some of these experiences pull you away from like what your end goal was and like delivering to your customers and being able to be a shop owner and keep pushing through that. So kind of just a little one more bite on that. Like what advice would you give other females that may have experienced something similar in the industry and are feeling discouraged?
Probably that it's not going to end. Like I still feel it all the time. I still, I started working at another shop once a week, and I program, I make parts there and stuff. And I got laughed at the other day by a dude that's like 60 years old, and it made me sad for a little bit. But I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like, it's not the end of the world. I still got to make parts. And so for women in manufacturing now, I think that it's something that is very up and coming, and you see a lot more, and it's not so taboo like it was before. I definitely think that if you're new and you want to try, or if you're in this and you're struggling, you should find somebody like Shay, like me, like there are a bunch of women out there, and we've been through it, but we're still here, and it's rewarding. I wouldn't change it for anything else. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. And I think that the things that are the hardest are the most rewarding.
Couldn't have said it better. I just got the chills. Whew.
It's
The hardest are the most rewarding. I totally, totally double down with that. That was
okay to
good.
be uncomfortable. I've learned it's okay to
Yes.
be uncomfortable.
Yes. Being I always so I coach competitive cheerleading, and I coach a lot of mostly on the tumbling side. And one thing I always tell my kids, like when they're trying to throw a new skill or they're trying to learn something new, I'm like, you have to make the uncomfortable comfortable. The second you make the uncomfortable comfortable, nobody can stop you. Because when you're uncomfortable, that's when you like change your personality. That's when you change who you are. That's when you hide in a shell. That's when you're afraid to do something or you're afraid to go after something. But if you're comfortable in the uncomfortable, who's stopping you? You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you for sharing all that. That was awesome. Okay, so now moving into kind of something a little bit different. You've talked about how rewarding manufacturing is, putting in the hard work and getting something in, return of that and seeing that is just, there's nothing else like it. What kind of life has manufacturing provided you, and are you happy with that life? And I ask that question because when I go to some schools to do presentations, and recently we've had kids in for tours and things like that, a lot of them say, like they'll raise their hand and be like, are you happy with the life that manufacturing is giving you? What has manufacturing given you? And I feel like there was this stigma from like maybe my parents or something like that these people were coming home like dirty and like this is a terrible job and it's low paying and there's no room for growth. And so like they want to ask that question because they almost want to prove their parents wrong. Like, no, mom, or no, dad, like this is what it's about and this is the type of lives that people are experiencing because of manufacturing. Would you be able to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I can talk about it from like I think things really changed for me when I started doing my own thing at M95. I honestly thought I was never going to be able to move out of my parents' house and live in the Bay Area, and I do now. And I'm happy to be here. That's one thing that I'm really happy about. Um, Also, I feel like you have connections that are like for life. This probably doesn't matter to a lot of people, but like you, Shay. Like if I ever, needed something, I am confident that I could call you and ask. And although you're on the
Absolutely.
East Coast, I know that there's something you could help me with. I'm on the West Coast, and there's probably something that I can help you with.
Absolutely.
You do come home dirty. I mean, there's no doubts about it, and it's fine. You do make money though, and there's like job security for sure, and there's always somebody that's looking for a programmer, for a machinist. And just because you're trimming in vices right now, or just because you're, picking up after everyone else at the shop, doesn't mean that you're never going to be a programmer. It doesn't mean that you're never going to have a desk job or be able to, make parts and come back, or set your own schedule. Like I definitely think that everybody goes through that. We all go through that. We've all been that person at the shop, just sweeping, or being told bossed around, whatever. And don't give up. You just have to prove yourself. I've gotten the opportunity to travel because of manufacturing. I went to the UK a couple years ago, and I never even thought about going to the UK. That was really cool. Getting the opportunity to go to shows like IMTS and see all the technology that's out there. And it's because of people like you and me. It's because of programmers. It's because of engineers and designers, like people that are all in our circle. Like it's super rewarding to be here and to have people, that I know that, yeah, he's the reason why that exists, or yeah, he's the person who designed that, you know? Like, how many people can say that?
So true. Like I'll look at a Tesla or I'll see a car and people be like, "Oh, it's so cool," and I'm like, "Oh, did you know manufacturing makes that?"
Yeah,
Or
like
like,
kids don't even think about that.
no, they don't. Or like, everybody's obsessed with like those tumbler cups right now or something. All of my cheerleaders have these tumbler cups, and I'm like,
Once.
"Do you know that those are made on like let's make that connection, you know?"
Hmm.
And but I think it's cool. I love how you talked about the reliability and the connection through manufacturing, through networking. Because yes, I mean, if there's anything that you ever needed, I mean, click of a button, phone call, anything away, and like the relationships that you build in manufacturing, like I just don't feel like it's possible in any other industry. It's incredible the opportunity that you get from networking, the just the support, the reliability. Like someone's always there for you when you need it, whether you want to learn, whether you want to vent, whether you want advice, whether you it's like so many different things that you can get. And the opportunity to travel, I love how you brought that in because like if you're a x-ray tech, not that anything is wrong with being an x-ray tech or a cosmetologist or something like that, like a lot of these fields that women go into, you're probably not going to go to the UK. You're probably not going to have the opportunity to go to Chicago and go to this huge show and be around these high level executives, these new people coming into manufacturing, all the cool technology. You don't get the opportunity to see the aerospace parts that are going into a Boeing aeroplane. You don't get to fly to Germany. You don't get to do these things that manufacturing presents. So I'm really glad that you touched on that. I think one thing too that manufacturing has also brought, and in more recent, and you've really been one of the forefronters pushing this, is social media. You are one of the biggest, if not the biggest, female on social media in manufacturing. Would you be able to talk about one, why you decided to do that? Two, just like the opportunities that have come from it.
I started M95 and then I have a personal Instagram. And I remember or like I was programming and stuff, and I remember I posted something on my personal Instagram, and like my regular friends and followers were like, "What the heck is this? Like this makes no sense." And I started getting followers that were in manufacturing, and I was like, I don't want these people in like my like regular space. Like I don't want you to see what I'm doing on the weekend. Like, it's awkward. Like it's just like a whole different world, right? And so I was like, I met Elo. She's a woman machinist on Instagram. She has like 300,000 followers or 100K. I don't know. She's in the Netherlands, but she's the person that I met first. And like, she introduced me to a bunch of other women, and I noticed, I was like, oh, like, so you guys make other pages for like your Instagrams, and like there's businesses on Instagram in manufacturing. I was like, okay, cool. So I was like, let me try and do my own Instagram. And yeah, I started posting a bunch of stuff. Uh, Not often. I still don't post often. And it grew pretty quickly. And I think what attracted everyone is like the nails. And that's how I grew my following, doing things with the nails. And I have a few sponsors because of Instagram. I've definitely gotten some big contracts through Instagram. I've gotten to travel because of my Instagram. That's how I've been noticed and stuff. I definitely think it's necessary and it's important, but it's also like there's also a downside to being online, right?
Yeah. Would
Um,
do you want to talk about that? I know we've talked about just kind of the downsides of being online.
I think one of like the biggest like downsides is like just like the DMs and people being just so hurtful and so like angry, and just like being so negative in my DMs and in my comments. And like I feel like I don't go on Instagram as much as I used to because of that. Like people are just so mean and so rude, and you always click on the page like, why would you say that, or who said that? And it's always like the dude with like two followers and like no
Ugh.
post or no photo. And yeah, like the creepy stuff. And like I went to Autodesk University last year, and my dad called me and he's like, why are like people showing up to the shop? He was like, were you expecting someone? And I'm like, no. And so I usually, like, I come back from a trip or, from being gone from the shop for a day, I have like a package on my desk or like, mail or something. And he's like, this is like getting out of hand. Like random people or like showing up to the shop, and like just followers, not salesmen, not like anything, just like random people. And so for me, it's almost like a safety thing is kind of like why I'm almost like scared to post or to be like, hey, I'm at the shop. Like I always get like, I'm gonna come by or this and that. And I'm like, my mom doesn't show up to the shop because it's like our place of work and she knows that it's like moving and things are happening all the time, so she never shows up. And I'm like, if she's not showing up or if she's not calling either me and my dad asking if she could come, and it's not even my shop, like it's my dad's, and she's like, hey, can I come or should I come? And I'm like, no, no, we're like doing this or that.
Yeah.
So she doesn't come, and then I started getting like random people showing up to the shop, and my dad's like, this is not a joke, this is not funny, like. And I'm like, you act like I'm inviting all these people to come over, like I don't know how they're finding me, like they're just showing
Hey,
up.
followers. Yeah, come over.
Yeah, and I've gotten like salesmen that come to the shop and they're like, hey, I saw your one YouTube video. Like, I just thought I would stop by and say hi. And I'm like, okay, hi. And I'm like running machines. And I'm like, how do I tell you that, like, this is like, it's important. And if you distract me, like, I can mess up, I can get hurt. Like, it's like a lot of things could happen. And like, my dad's like, if you don't stop this, like, you're going to have to move your shop somewhere else because this is ridiculous. And it's like it also affects him because if I'm not there, then they're taking time away from him. And the last thing that he wants to hear is like, "Hey, I'm here to see your daughter," or like, or is
Right.
Melissa here? Like, yeah. And so I kind of get scared to post. And like I've gone to events and they're like, "Oh, you're the chick from online, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And you can tell like the people that are just nice and just want to talk about manufacturing, but it's like the people that don't talk to you, like you don't know. And I don't know. I get super paranoid.
That's crazy. Like that is crazy that people just show up. People do not show up at Melissa's shop. It's unbelievable. Send her
and
a DM and
and
maybe
it's
request a visit.
it's like I run M95 out of my dad's shop, and it's just like it's even more awkward because he's like, "What the heck is going on?" Or they're like, "Oh, you must be her dad," like, "Oh, you must be this and that," and he's like, "I so
Get
yeah,
out.
who are you?" Yeah, like he's like, "Go," and you'll like sometimes I'll like if I see somebody coming, I'm just like hide in the back, or I'll like text him, be like, "No, I'm not here. I'm not
I
here. Like
would too.
I can't do this right now."
No, no, that's so, yeah. There's another thing about social media that I want to talk about because I know you've had experience with this and you don't have to name any names or any brands or anything like that. But one thing with social media that I think manufacturing is like 10 years behind on is like how brand deals work. And ever since you and I have talked about this, I've experienced like this myself with a particular company, which again, not going to name any names. You're welcome to if you want to. Um, but like this particular company asked me for something. I gave it to them out of being nice. I tried to give advice when I was asked. And then at this point, is just being like taken advantage of. What they promised me never came through. Like what they talked to me about, what they took time out of my day for, never came true. And then they continue asking me for advice and for me to do this and that. And I'm like, no, crossing the line. So, like, I think what manufacturing doesn't understand is like how social media works nowadays is if you want someone to represent your product, you better come shooting with a check. Like you better come with cash, you better come with money because they're getting access to your views and like your people. And gosh, if manufacturing could just understand that, I think one day we will. But you've had experiences with that, haven't you? Like something along the lines of kind of getting screwed in that way.
Yeah, I think it's like people think that it's easy and it's quick and it's fun, or like, oh, it's so easy for you. Like just do it, just post it. And it's like if I am helping you make money, why wouldn't you pay me for that? And like
Exactly.
especially like your job is marketing. You're helping your company make money and you're selling their product, aren't you, Shay?
Exactly.
And in return, you get a paycheck because that is your job. And like at
Perfect. Yeah.
M95, people are like, oh, well, your job is to make parts. And I'm like, yeah, but it's also like I've built a business out of the Instagram because I have a huge following. And so if you want me to take time out of my day to learn your product, to review your product, I can't make a living doing that because I have to stop doing what makes me money, which is parts. And if you want me to do that and post it to my 20,000 followers and my views, I get a lot more views than I have followers. And I think, that happens for everyone. And I'm like, I'm not going to do this for free. Like, I have to take time out of my day to review your product, to learn your product, to edit videos, to make sure everything sounds good. And like, I just can't. Like, right now, my DMs are like there's a big bike company in my DMs. Like, will you use our bike and post it on your Instagram? And there's X amount of dollars involved, and I get a code and I get this. And I'm like, that would be great, but this almost has nothing to do with manufacturing. And
Doing
I'm like,
right.
if that company pays me to post a video about their bike, why wouldn't you pay me, for example, Intel, to use your laptop and to whatever, or like Dell, like I have to use your product by myself, I have to learn it, and I kind of have to convince my followers, like, hey, this is something you should buy. And out of those like 100,000 views, there is probably one person that will buy that, and that's
Oh yeah.
$500 in their pocket. Like
Yeah,
there's yeah, like somebody will buy something at the end of the day.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And like
And I
people think that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
People think that it's like, oh, you're just taking advantage of them, or oh, you can't do that. And it's like, yeah, I can. Like, why not? It's like everybody else is doing it. If I have this bag of hot Cheetos and I post it, hot Cheetos will probably pay me to post another one, like if I was a hot Cheeto influencer or something.
You know what, maybe you should start another page, Hot Cheeto Influencer.
Yeah,
I'm
hot
down
Cheeto
with that.
girl.
The Hot Cheeto girl. Oh my god, that is funny. But yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. And I love how you like, as from a marketing perspective, like I am hired to market products for people to buy. Like in a way, marketing is like influencing just in like a more business way, corporate way. It's not so like loose or personal, I guess, if you will, like maybe something on Instagram would be when it comes to like fitness brands or like something like that, right? And so like I get the same way because we have exclusive contracts. So I work for a company called the HEH Group. Most of you know that. We have 4 different companies under that. Not going to get into it, but we have 2 distributors in that group, and we represent certain brands. And those brands that we have exclusive contracts with, those are the brands that we're going to market for. Those are the brands that I'm going to post about. Those are the brands that our company pages are going to post about. And we do that because it's a value add to our partner, and that's what we do to sell our product and help them gain bigger market share and sell their product. And that's what it is, and we get a kickback for that. Obviously, we're partnered with them. There's the distribution splits and the percentages and all that stuff that comes into it that makes distribution and sales move. And there's no incentive for our company to post about something that we aren't going to make a dollar on, that our sales guy isn't going to make a commission on, that our company is not going to increase revenue on. So if you want somebody to make a post and you want to utilize their following for your benefit, it's it seems like a job to me. Seems like something that you need to be hired for. I also like how you talked about it doesn't just take 2 seconds. I think what people don't realize is like, and you're the same way because you just said it. You said it takes me time to learn your product and figure out your product and use your product. I'm the same way. I always tell people, like, you will never see me making a video about anything that I have not studied for probably a month now, at least. And prior to that month, I've been learning and watching and asking questions and everything 2 years prior to that. And now I've just made a video. And it takes time to do that. You're not just gonna like, oh, here's blah blah blah, post.
Hmm.
No, you know, it takes time to do that. And you gotta love a product and be around it and use it to feel like you can promote it. Otherwise, it doesn't feel authentic.
Yeah, exactly. And I get a lot of DMs. They're like, if we send you this, will you post it? If we send you X amount of, will you post it? And I'm like, no, like it's garbage product. I have a lot of followers, and like I'm not gonna post garbage stuff. And like even I think I'm at a point where like even if you paid me and I don't agree with your product, no, I will not post it. And I'm also at a point
Totally.
in my life where I'm like, if you want marketing from M95, because people are like, you're just a machine shop. I'm like, yeah, but we also do great at marketing ourselves. And now, so our
Yeah.
marketing side, like, there's just money involved. Like, people are like, you can't be a Titans of CNC. And I'm like, I don't want to be a Titans of CNC, but I will get paid for my time and for my effort. And if that's just what it is, like, it, I'm like, I don't know, somebody was like, you're being selfish or self-centered, and I'm like, no, like, I'm just taking care of me and of my time. There's a bunch of
Yeah.
other things I could be doing, like programming, which takes a long time, making parts, which takes a long time. You think I just want to sit in front of the camera and be like, hey everyone, buy this product? No.
Right. And it's not being that person is being selfish by asking you to take time away from their day to promote a product that they're not going to pay you for to use your following. You're not being selfish by turning it down.
Thanks, Shay.
Like, I think eventually, I really hope. I mean, social media was kind of late to getting into manufacturing, anyways. Hopefully, as the years go on, they start to understand kind of the concept and freebies are not freebies. Just like you're not going to buy a machine for free, you ain't going to post about it for free. You're not just going to sell a machine for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hopefully it comes around. But to kind of one thing, kind of last notes here that I kind of just want to get into real quick is goals of M95. You're super hardworking, like you said at the beginning. Like you're always going to be a working bee, and not only are you being a rock star on Instagram, but you're building your own business, building your own brand. Um, what is kind of the outlook of the next 10 years? What does M95 look like?
I hope that I can get, enough work to just have like a solid team of like 4 people, 4 or 5, no more than that. I honestly would say no more than 10 people. My dad's always told me like they have 3 buildings. The whole company is 3 different buildings. And I'm like, I don't want to be 3 different buildings. I want to keep it, neat, tight, and personal. I want to have, just one building, a handful of machines, but like not just any machines. Like we can make anything, but we have like a solid team. I never want to have a company where it's like 200 employees and I don't even know the
You don't
200
know.
employees. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, like there are times where I sleep at the shop, or there are times where I've gone like 2 or 3 days without sleeping, just making parts. And like, that's kind of what's exciting to me is like the quick turnaround, the prototypey stuff, like the high stress is like what's nice. And I think it would be cool to be able to have a team where we kind of experience the same thing. And I always know what's going on. I think my dad has like 30 employees, and I mean, one person's out and then no, can't pick up the slack, and he's doing this and he's doing that. I'm like, wouldn't it be better if you just had like a smaller team, And I think I'd love to have a team. I'd love to have a cool shop where we can all hang out and be ourselves. I think it would be cool if I could have, I did how it's made with MSC in Ohio
Yeah.
or something, and they have this shop, this program that if you want to learn machining, you can just go there and learn machining, manual to CNC. And I don't think in California we have anything like that. Like that's all you learn is just CNC. You don't have to learn English, you don't have to learn math, you don't have to learn science to just do machining, because if you go to a JC, you kind of have to get into all these little classes before you can get into, like the
The machining class. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I thought it was really cool. And I'm like, I don't think we have anything like that here. And I think it would be really special to be able to fund or, start a project like that to just bring kids in, or just, a place where women feel safe and they're allowed to run any machine that they want. I've recently made some friends with some chicks where they're like, they won't take us off the manual machines. I've been there for 5 years, still doing manual stuff, and I want to do CNC. And I'm like, I wish I had like the money or funding or whatever to be able to like start a shop and just like, hey, work with me, work for me, run freaking any machine that you want here. And I'm like, this chick is a badass programmer. I can't believe like they won't take her off the manual. But yeah, I think a shop with like a handful of people, and then maybe a place to be able to help other, younger kids, troubled kids, or just, women that want to get into the in manufacturing but that aren't given that opportunity.
How neat of a story would that be? I mean, with what you experienced just trying to learn machining and what you experienced just trying to get into manufacturing, like you providing an environment that you wish that you had for like women and like you said troubled kids or kids, you know, women coming out of high school, just like almost like a tech lab that they could learn
Mhm.
CNC, manual, robots,
Yeah.
inspection equipment, like stuff that would be so neat. I am rooting for you on that one. I'm rooting for you. Well, I'm rooting for you on all of it, but that one is that one's so exciting. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm just going to kind of open it up here. If there's any kind of last words, encouraging words to the manufacturing industry, to the young generation, what you want people to hear from you, why don't you kind of lay that out for us?
I know that it probably might seem hard right now, or it might seem like, the world is against you, but I promise I felt like that in my early 20s. I still feel like that. And if you're in high school right now and you don't know where you're going, I definitely didn't know. Don't give up. I think manufacturing and especially CNC is a great place to be. I mean, get into 3D printing, but just try it. Don't ever look back and think, wow, I should have tried or I should have done that. Um, if you're 18, 19, 20, and you still don't know what you want to do, it's okay. It's fine. You don't have to know what you want to do yet. And for any woman that's out there and is going through a hard time in manufacturing, there are people like me and Shay and all the other girls in manufacturing right now that you could reach out to. I feel very honored to be here and supported by you, Shay, by people like Rachel and Rebecca and everybody in manufacturing right now. So don't feel alone. I definitely felt alone and I don't feel that way anymore. Thank you, Shay, for having me on your podcast. Follow us on Instagram at M95 Machining and on TikTok if you have TikTok.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on. This is our listeners are really going to enjoy this episode. I'm starting to kind of get the feel now of like what our listeners like listening to, and you're going to be a total hit. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this. I'm really excited to get this video up. Everybody that's listening, thank you so much for your time today. We hope and we know that Melissa's story has inspired you. Please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share this episode with somebody in manufacturing, somebody in high school education, anything to give them some motivation to consider manufacturing as a career. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.